Stay. All right. Welcome back.
Hi, everybody.
This is Berenice.
And this is Ella.
Welcome back to Thanks for Your Concern.
We're so excited to have you. We're having a really awesome guest. Our really dear friend, Halard, is going to be on the podcast. He is a really amazing human being, and I'm really excited to talk about friendship, his kind of coming of age story, and how we know each other in some funny times.
So starting off, we want to maybe do a little check-in. Ella, how are you doing?
I have a squirrel. Last week, I talked about how I have a 10-foot tall sunflower, and I have a squirrel attacking it. I don't know. He's being a menace, and obviously, he's a part of nature, and, I respect him as an individual, but he's been very disrespectful
him or
to
her.
me.
Or whatever.
Quarantine's getting bad when you and the squirrel have beef.
Yeah.
What about you? How are you?
Things are good. I saw my parents for the first time in a couple of months, and we got to chat about the podcast. They're very excited. They're very worried about me because, sometimes they get the versions of my stories where I make them sense that everything's okay, that I'm doing great. And they're like, why didn't you tell us things were this bad in college? So we had some good conversations about the podcast.
Love that. Yeah. I'm happy my parents don't listen. They don't need to listen. I think it's better that way.
They also came with a bag of my stuff that it was left in their apartment that I thought that was going to be a home that I could always come back to. I've been kicked out.
They're like, bye. We need that room. All right. Well, let's get started.
So we have Halard Hyllseth. He's going to be our guest on this podcast. And Halard is who we should all be.
Yeah, we were talking about it. The world would be a better place if we were all Halards. So
a little background story of how we know Halard, how he's relevant to today's podcast. Halard and I have been friends since high school. He was our safe haven in Pullman many times where we didn't want to be either in the sorority after Trump getting elected. We'd go to his house. He'd let us crash there when we didn't want to be part of initiation. And we hid in Pullman, just a few blocks away from our sorority. So Halard has always been there for us.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the hiding from the sorority really quick because it's a funny story, super quick. So basically, we were like, we can't be here anymore, but of course, there's huge consequences, and they wanted to get us in trouble if
They'll
we just
find you thousands of dollars if you miss initiation.
And so we were just like, you know what, Jesus Christ, let's just hide. And we were like, okay, where do we hide? And I was like, and Berenice says let's go hide at Halard's, which is 3 blocks away from our sorority. And I had I was like, oh, I lied. I was like, we're going to Seattle. We're gonna go see my mom. I'm so excited. And the whole time we were hiding in Halard's house.
Well, let's be fair too. I think I came home one day because this is this is something we'll definitely talk about today, but I was getting back from some bullshit student government stuff. I came home. I was in a bad mood. Everyone was in a bad mood. And I just saw them on our couch.
So going into what we're going to talk about today. So I've known Halard since high school. And in high school, Halard was very quiet. I would say, and more on the quiet side, he hung out with a lot of white peers. And I didn't know much about Halard. And then we went to college and our friendship blossomed. And I just saw him grow as just a person and really grow maybe not into himself, because I feel like we can all grow into ourselves in a lot of fucking different ways, but he found his people, he found his calling, and he joined student government. So he's here to talk to us about friendship breakups, finding our tribes. So we're gonna start off, maybe Halard, if you want to talk about the person that you were in high school and when you went to college, maybe what was the catalyst in changing your friendships?
Just growing up in Madrona, the Central District, I've always just kind of gone with this flow of I'm going to go play music at Garfield. I'm going to go do all these things that it just feels like it just will happen, and I'm not going to give it too much thought. And then a lot of that changed when we talked about me running for president, and I honestly was looking for the easiest way out. What was the position that no one was running for? That was vice president. He said, you should do it. And I was the first time I'd ever been now I'm going to actually put some ideas I have on the table rather than just following the general spread of things. And that goes into my relationship with my friends as well. You touched on it. We went to a high school that was historically black and just black and brown POC. It was it's been the center of social movements. It's been the center of all this incredible work that's been done in Seattle, and now it's incredibly white and gentrified. And there's still a culture to it, but it played into what Bernice had said. Like, friend group was very white, and that came with a lot of issues. So like going into college, where like all of those white friends in a way like went to 4-year institutions that I didn't make it into. Like coming out of high school, like I never even thought about how a privilege it was to like go get a higher education.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm second gen, but that don't mean much compared to actually being a first generation student. And these things like we're just not, I wasn't cognizant to them. I wasn't open to like thinking about them in high school, and I don't like hold myself too tough on that, I guess. But yeah, I just like went into freshman year thinking that like, oh, I'm going to WSU. I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, I feel like for one thing that I've listening to you that kind of relate to is for a really long time, I think I didn't realize my privilege when it came to college, and also the lack of privilege, because I feel like I compared myself so much to my peers when, to be honest, like I rented in the neighborhood where people were owning. So like I think that's kind of like a really big difference, where their families had enough money to buy $500,000 homes in our neighborhood, but like my family could never afford that. But you think you like go to the same school, that you have the same life as somebody, that you're somehow failing, when I realized I didn't take SAT prep. I literally took the test one time.
Woke up in the morning like at 9:30, half an hour before, and like went up to Ingram, and I just was not. I just like went in and went out. My dad picked me up afterwards. We watched a soccer game afterwards. It just wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah. It wasn't like it was. I don't even think my parents like knew what those tests were.
Yeah. So definitely, like I feel like then in college I found people that I related to, and I've always said that in high school, like I didn't really have a friend group, even though I was popular because I did like gross things not gross things. I just feel embarrassed now to be like, I was cheerleading captain. But I was cheerleading captain. I was super popular, but like I didn't have friends. But I didn't have friends because I feel like on some level I just couldn't relate to them. And it wasn't until college that I found like a group of people where I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like you guys have similar backgrounds as me. And I feel really blessed to like have had that, because I know not everyone has that opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I was definitely a floater in high school, and that just really means like I had different friend groups with different backgrounds, and to this day, when people reach out to me about the podcast, they're like, I feel like a bad friend because I know so many things about you, and it's like, no, you were a great friend. I just didn't share shit with anybody. So
yeah,
I couldn't build a lot of
totally.
Yeah. I couldn't build a lot of like great relationships unless there were certain people that I trusted in different groups. So I never had like this niche group of like friends that I felt like we were gonna go through all of high school together. But yeah, and then shit changes in college.
It changes a lot. But like, and like we went to WSU. We know most white folks, especially those that like didn't grow up like in a city environment maybe, or like didn't go out of the way. If you lived in the suburbs, if you lived in like Enumclaw, like that's the thing about WSU is that like I didn't go to Northwestern, I didn't go to USC, I didn't go to Harvard, Michigan, like all of these like very prestigious universities with a wide array of folks from across the nation. We went to the state university, and like WSU has its fair share of problems. We all know that, but it's like it put together a lot of people from Washington and like California and Hawaii as well. But a lot of Washingtonians that came from like Enumclaw, like Chelan, like I had never met someone from the Tri-Cities before I went to WSU. So I feel like that like allowed me space to kind of grow outside of just hanging out with who I was comfortable with, like trying to get in touch with like who I wanted to be and what that would evolve into. And like freshman year, I had a super tight, diverse, awesome group of friends that we all lived on the same floor in Goldsworthy. And
Goldsworthy.
Southside, where the only diversity was.
Because it was the cheapest door.
And that was so much money. But
well, you were more responsible. You didn't need the structure, I feel like, that some freshmen need.
Fair. But I mean, even freshman year, I was trying to get out. I applied to transfer twice. I haven't told a lot of people this before, like other close friends. Hot takes. And this is something that like carried with me into college freshman year when Bernice would come hang out. Like she would like hammer this in. Like I am kind of indebted for real, like to Bernice for like pointing this out to me. Like, wow, sorry, indebted. But no, like for real, just like this idea that you like, I've never really wanted to like let go of like my past experiences entirely. But like there was a point where I was just too attached to this idea of who I thought I should be, like from high school, like especially working with those PTSA moms and dads who like have that privilege. They're very well-meaning folks, like the parents of a lot of my good friends. But some of them have said stuff like, I said I was going to WSU. They're like, oh, don't worry, like you'll get up there, like you can always transfer. And I'm like, these things do not help a 17-year-old who doesn't know what the fuck. Those kind of microaggressions, not even just like microaggressions, like straight up, like they are not thinking about like just like the privilege a college education is that fed into me wanting to like transfer. And I didn't get in. I got rejected twice, and that was devastating. I was just like, do I want to leave? Because after that freshman year, the friend group I thought I'd have all 4 years, like a lot of, like, I'd probably say about 3/4 of that group that we had, about 8, 9, 10 guys, like they all had to drop out for different reasons. They had to drop out because college was too expensive. WSU is like not the right place for some people. It is a very toxic place sometimes.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. It's kind of just how you manage it, right?
Yeah.
But like it just wasn't for some of my friends. And I went into my sophomore year. But then this is when I like feel like I started to just like get comfortable again. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be at WSU for 4 years. Let's just be friends with like the student government, white people. And this is where I think Berenice thought I completely drop everyone. No, I'm kidding. Because I kind of did. They were like,
you were busy.
I was very busy, and it was not healthy. I should have given myself a little bit of time off.
A little fun once in a while. We try to make you have fun.
Every single time I'd see Harold, I'd be like, so what are we doing tonight? Like, you're going to come out with us, right? Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like, Harold, you can't just like be work all the time. Let's go, let's do this. Harold never took me up on it, like very, very rarely. But, you know, we're working on the balance.
To Senate every day, and then like I'd get home at like 9 o'clock. I was trying to do projects that all my quote unquote friends did not care about. And like they were majority white folks. And there were some like POC that just I feel like I put like their work and like trying to get ahead, trying to play this weird game that like I already hate politicians playing. These were kids playing as if they were the sitting U.S. senators for like states, like dead ass states. And like I'm not afraid to say that and like for me to get in there with like a dream to want to like do better for the university that quite honestly I didn't want anything to do with the year before, like I thought would be emboldening and like would rub off on some folks like it has in my past experiences. Like if you wanted to be friends, we'd live up to the standards, like at least in that sense for like a work friendship. And then I didn't have any homies like other than like the guys in the house, like when we all started hanging out more as at the safe house.
That's the name of your live out, safe house.
And then I learned about what a live out was sophomore year from them. It was crazy. I was like, people really live in these conditions. Yeah, I mean those folks like freshman or sophomore year, like a lot of them weren't the homies, and like I didn't have that semblance to like want to go to the fourth floor, you know, like
the fourth floor was like the multicultural basically hub, so it was like lots of people of color. Smart Start was there, which is like first generation college students, but the fourth floor was very standoffish to me, like
you had to, for me, because I'm half black and half white, I always feel uncomfortable in spaces where it's like black spaces, because it's sometimes people don't recognize me as being black, whatever. That's a whole separate story. But it is a little intimidating to try and join. Like, it was like a club that I didn't, like, I got invited to, but I felt uncomfortable
like
going.
For having the multicultural background, but like, I don't know, I just never, every time that I went there, people just like would stare. And I'm just trying to print my fucking homework for free. Like, I don't have time to.
Or like, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but since we were in a sorority, people were like, you hang out with white people, like you're trying to be white because you're literally in a traditional white group, which is because sororities. Fun thing I like to do at frat parties is when I'm always like, oh yeah, my dad went to WSU, and they're like, what frat was he in? And I was like, oh, they didn't let black people in at the time. They think I'm kidding. Well, actually, I don't think they think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding.
And then it makes them uncomfortable.
And then it makes them super uncomfortable. And it's like, no, it's cool. Like, you're kind of in a white supremacy group, but whatever. Like, let's not talk about it.
It's okay. Like, you signed up for this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a side note, but I spent a lot of junior year at like Tri-Delts, because that was Tri Delta is
a sorority.
Devin's sorority, and like we worked there a lot during the campaign, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But yeah, it was a weird dynamic. I'm very gracious to they like would like feed me and stuff. Like they would like let me sit in on their lunches.
She paid for that, okay? Those were guest privileges.
Those included. Also, boys, any time you brought a boy, they'd be like, yeah, eat here, whatever.
It looked good. You're a cute guy. They're like, yeah, this is good for the image.
Good for the image. Right. But yeah, I mean, it was just weird with like going back to the student government being like the crux of it. Like, I mean, those are what kind of changed the direction for me. But like that started sophomore year, but then I was still hanging out with the same white people, and we were just complaining about like bullshit student government stuff that I just like in the moment was like, oh, this is the center of the world on this campus. And like, surprise, it wasn't. Like it's just toxic in a lot of ways. But I mean, I'm curious to hear about your stories about cutting off friends.
Of cutting people off?
I'll just say this, that it's really crazy because I feel like me cutting people off is not something that I would have done in high school, because in high school I was seeking validation so badly, and I wanted to be like, I mean, I think I've talked to my therapist about this. This is very normal for a teenager, especially like a young teenager, to like want to fit in. And so in high school, like I never cut people off. So I think like cutting people off kind of was a part of me becoming who I am, which is, what are you really about, and who do you want to have around you? Just thinking about like what are my values really led me to find like-minded people. And a quote freshman year that I painted on one of my canvases, that's a big thing, is painting canvases is like a go-to dorm decoration. But the one that I really resonated with is that your vibe attracts your tribe. And I just really felt like, you know what, I'm just gonna be myself, which I did not do that in high school. I was everybody else and who I thought people wanted me to be. But then college, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be myself, and hopefully people are attracted to who I am. And I was really lucky that I'm telling you, this vibe stuff is like real, because me and Berenice became friends on literally like not even the first day. It was like day 0 of college. And I feel really lucky, even though I talk some major shit on Greek life, like at least I found really dope human beings.
I agree. And so I can give the other side. Like growing up, a couple people cut me off. A couple that resonate was a really good friend I had like throughout middle school and a little bit of high school. And I felt like she had a lot of like family stuff going on, and she was really like unhappy. Like even though we were friends and we got into like a lot of things, I think her life, she just had a lot of struggles, and she always looked at the bright side, which I think that like that's what made our friendship. We were like really close, because even though we both faced a lot of adversity, we would always be like, this is the best day ever, even though like no, it's really not. And it got to a point where she was just like, you just have a really different lifestyle than me, and I feel like I have to leave it behind in order to like move forward. And at that point, like that really hurt me, because I thought like we were really close. Like I've said this before, like when I'm really close to my friends, I see them as family members. Like you're just an extension of that. So even though it hurt, I was like, I will always be here for you. And now like I understand that like people, they kind of run their course. Ella and I were talking about this, like you can grow separately. Like I see where they were coming from and I see where they were going. It's really hard when you feel like people leave you behind. But it's never really like that. Like I'm on good terms with all the people that like have cut me off in the past now.
Yeah, the thing my therapist says about like all relationships is that you have like your path, and then someone else has their path, and then you have the path that you share together, right? And you can't control someone else's path. And at some point, the path that you have together just might kind of like have to end, because your paths are just so different at this point. And like that's what growing apart really is. And growing apart is like really difficult. And now that I'm 26. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm just a different person. And I feel like that's obvious, right? That you're a different person at 26 than you were at 16. And I'm sad sometimes I don't have certain people in my life. But then again, I just think about that. Like, we just don't fit, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that that person's a bad person or anything. It just means that they're different and you're different.
I agree. I have closed a lot of relationships with people who are now Trump supporters, but I befriend people all the time now that are Trump supporters.
So is there like any advice you would have given yourself like 5 years ago?
That life is wild. You're not going to be able to control it sometimes, and like feel comfortable in your emotions, and just don't get stuck in an old zone too long. The comfortability aspect is not healthy.
We love that.
Yes, we do.
Do you have any advice, Ella?
I think as soon as you become true to yourself, that's a scary situation because you might lose people, right? But you have to think about what's on the other side, and being yourself and being true to yourself is really what life is about, because people come and go, things happen. So if you're not secure in yourself, then you're not going to attract friends that are truly your real friends, right? So figure out who you are and then just find people based off of that. Instead of trying to conform so that you can have friends, be yourself and then find friends that fit that.
I just want to say, I guess, there's always a lot of noise. And by noise, I mean like there's always a lot of things like I think going on in the world. And thinking about a lot of the people that have reached out to me or I have reached out to, even with starting this podcast, I've had a lot of friends that I think I may have taken for granted because there was so many things like I was doing and that I never really gave them their full, I don't know, just like their full time, their full love that I think I should have. So I think that's the advice I would give to myself. Give people more of your time, a little more quality, a little less quantity.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's time for the plug of the week. All right, so mine is going to be it's not a person, it's a thing. I need everyone to go register to vote. This is really important. I literally cannot implore people more to register for vote. But I want you to take it one step further, which is make sure that go check your registry to see where your ballot is being delivered. That window is closing. I know that I had to go through a bunch of hoops to get my ballot because I accidentally left my college address on there. So please, everyone, go check that. And then tell literally everyone you know to go register to vote, because this is the most important election in the history of America.
Word. My plug of the week is Kellie Richardson. She is a writer, artist, and educator. Her work explores the intersections of race, class, and gender with the themes of love, loss, and longing. We're all around intersectionality on this podcast. You can find her work and her blog at brownbetty.org. She just released The Art of Naming My Pain, which is a collection of poetry, prose, and collages, which you can find more on her website. She also recently had a pop-up where she sold her most recent collection. Some are still available, so check her out. Her Instagram is at brownbetty253.
All right, Halard, what's your plug of the week?
I have got a kind of sticking with maybe the topic of today. I've got to show some Filipino fam love to my guy, Jess Wanich. We went to high school with him at Garfield, and he just got done being a great student body president for Seattle University. He's getting his master's, but on the side of that, and he's also first gen, just all claps around to Jess. He just hit 100,000 views on his YouTube channel because he also does music. And I just wanted to drop that link. It's JJ Wan, Juan on YouTube, and his Instagram is JUANICH, Jess Wanich. Appreciate it.
All right, links will be in the description, and also we're going to post them on our Instagram. That was Plugs of the Week. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I would love if you guys would go give our Instagram a follow, which is thanks, the number for your concern. And we have a link on there that shows you like our Twitter, our YouTube, and where else you can find us. If you want to do us a fat favor, you could go rate us on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out so much. So we are so excited to have you today. We want to give another thank you to Halard, and bye.
Bye.